نتهم من جمع المال وجمع الملايين، من حرام أو من حلال من سئلانين.
Today we're going to talk about charities, gifts, and donations. The author said, giving for free. So it's not a sale, it's not a rental, it's not even safekeeping or letting someone hold your item so they can give it back to you. None of those. Giving for free includes a charity or a handout for someone's need, or an offering for rapport, or a gift or a present. Here, an offering for rapport, for good relations. Every sadaqah, charity, and hadiyah, present, is a hiba, a gift. Yani, gift is a broad word, or hiba in Arabic is a broad word. We're going to use gift. So hiba includes the charity that you give to someone for helping that one, or a handout. And it includes the hadiyah, the present that you give, even could be to a rich person. And it includes more than that, as we'll see, inshallah. Everything that can be sold can be a gift. Take that rule. That's an answer for a question that you might get. Can I give this as a gift? Can you sell it? Yes, then you can give it as a gift. A gift which only requires giving and taking, not a verbal agreement. So not every single deal requires, even according to those who said you need statements for your deals, they didn't mean the gift and the charity that you could just put in someone's hand and you keep going without saying anything. One may even be charitable to a blasphemer. It's not haram, but to a Muslim, it is better. Yani, if you had the choice, reserve your charity for a Muslim. And also for your neighbor over someone who's not your neighbor, and for your relative over someone who's not your relative. One can also leave a gift for someone after death, which is the will, wasiyah. The will, which is different from the inheritance. The inheritance, there are people who have specific shares. Relatives who get specific shares of the estate, that means the money left over, of the dead person. But then there's something that you might do before you die, which is you would specify that some of your money will go to someone who doesn't inherit from you. So that's a gift after death. That's called wasiyah, and we're going to call that the will. To donate, or to give a grant, or to give a contribution, and that's still a hiba. This is something else included under hiba, a gift. There must be a verbal transfer of possession and a verbal acceptance. That is, a donation or a grant or a contribution is more official than just a charity or a present. So therefore, hiba includes a giving that does not require statements and a giving that does require statements. So as you can see, it depends on your intention. Yani, what that thing is, what that giving of yours is, depends on your intention. That's why The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not allowed to receive a charity, but he was allowed to receive a gift. So you might say, what's the difference? The difference is your intention. Everything that can be sold can be donated, as well as something like 1 grain of wheat can be donated. That can't be sold, but it can be donated. Yani, what's included under tabarru', which we're translating here as donation. Included under that is like the bag you get when you go to the store and they just put your stuff in the bag and you walk away with it. So where'd that bag, how'd that bag become yours? Did you buy it? Some stores make you buy the bag, which is valid. And maybe most stores don't. So how does that bag become yours? Tabarru'. It's a contribution or a tip. Also, what's like that? What's a tip? When you buy some gold, for example, is it pure 100% gold? Could be 24 karat gold, could be 18 karat gold, so the purity of the gold varies. So those impurities in there, are you buying those or are you just buying the gold? So if you're just buying the gold, that means that that extra stuff in there, it's like a tip. It's a donation. Tabarru'. So going forward, just do what you know to be valid. If you want to give a donation per se, make a statement. Now, you might have a question. What if everybody in the whole musalla is not making a statement? And so what do? You work according to your knowledge, or you follow what the people around you are doing? You work according to your knowledge. That's what the Shaykh taught us, rahimahullah. These 3 types that we talked about, which are the charity, the present, and the donation, are all recommended. They're all sunnah rewardable. But throwing the charity in the face of the recipient makes one lose its reward. That means you say, didn't I give you such and such on such and such day? Hey, remember when your wife kicked you out of the house and I let you sleep on my couch? So you can embarrass him. Then you lose the reward of your charity. A nightly wedding banquet after consummation is recommended. So could be in the daytime, but at night, a wedding banquet, you can do parties for other events also, not just for a wedding. But when they say walima, just like that only, it originally means the wedding banquet. But some people might use the word walima for any type of banquet or party. So a nightly wedding banquet after consummation is valid before consummation, but recommended after consummation. Like, you know how some Muslims, just when they do the marriage contract, they already have the food and everything ready for everyone. That counts. A nightly wedding banquet after consummation is recommended, and attendance is obligatory without an excuse. Look here, doing that banquet after consummation. You might say, why after consummation? I will tell you, I don't know, but I'll tell you something else. Yani, I haven't heard, but I'll tell you, so many times, if you just do what does the religion tell you to do? If you do what's recommended, you'll say, then you'll see the secret in that. So, inshallah, any one of you who gets married, do your walima after consummation, and perhaps you will know the secret behind that sunnah. And attendance is obligatory without an excuse. If you're invited to a walima and you don't have an excuse, you have to go. Now, we're still on the theme of giving away, relinquishing, not keeping. So now let's talk about divorcing and emancipating and sharing. By consensus, a man may divorce his wife thrice, 3 times. Yani 1 time or 2 times or 3 times. If he divorced her once, then if he brings her back before her iddah is over, he could divorce her again a 2nd time. And if he brings her back before her iddah is over, then he could divorce her a 3rd time, but not more than 3 times. So by consensus, a husband may divorce his wife thrice in sequence, like to say, I divorce you once, I divorce you twice, or I divorce you again, and I divorce you again 3 times. Or he could say, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, with the intention of 3 divorces in sequence. Or in one statement, he could say, I divorce you 3 times in one session or in different sessions. He can divorce her while she's in her iddah also. If she's in a returnable iddah, he can divorce her a 2nd time and a 3rd time. Conditionally or unconditionally. Conditionally means to say, if you leave the house, you are divorced. If you talk to so-and-so, you are divorced, for example. Now that has details. What if you intended now while we're fighting? You didn't mean forever. If you leave this house, you're divorced. But you meant now while we're arguing, not forever. We won't go into all of that, but there's details there. So conditionally or unconditionally. Unconditionally means to say you're divorced, so there's no condition there. He pays what reconciles her heart if he consummated. If he divorced her after consummating with her, he divorced her. The marriage was not broke from her side. He's the one who divorced her. Then he has to give her a mut'ah. Important obligation. Don't forget that, brothers. If you married the woman and you consummated, put it this way. Don't think about divorce as free. Divorce costs some money if you think about it that way. So you don't forget that you have to pay her the mut'ah if you consummated. A master may emancipate his slave, like he says, you are free, or I free you, I emancipate you, just like a divorce statement. A woman may give her turn to her co-wife or her husband. When a man has more than one wife and he has to give them turns, a woman could give her turn to her co-wife. Then, so that means if it's wife A's turn and she gave her turn to wife B, then that means the husband has to go to wife B. Or she could give her turn to her husband. If she gave her turn to her husband, then he can do with it what he wants to do with it. And she can relieve him of spousal duties like, say, you don't have to support me. All I want is your love. And that is non-binding. That means she can take it back. All of that which we said, she can take it back. And then he'd have to stop what he's doing and come back to her house. And start paying after he wasn't paying. Start providing after he wasn't providing. One must also grant his wife possession of her food and clothing. Unless she eats with him like families usually eat together, then this will fulfill his obligation, and then he wouldn't have to give her possession of other food on top of that. And he does not have to give her possession of the house. And giving his wife possession of her food and clothing is opposed to his other dependents, like his poor parents and his little children, these ones that one is obligated to support, he does not have to make them own anything he gives them. So all the clothing on their back could belong to him. He doesn't have to fit them to own them. If he bought them, for example, they're his. And he doesn't have to make them own them. And the wife, she's supposed to get a specified amount of food every day. Specified amount. His other dependents, they don't have any specified amount of food that he has to give them. All he has to do is give them what they need, what makes them full. And what makes them full does not mean what makes them stuffed. He doesn't have to give them what makes them stuffed. If one has more water than his immediate needs and those immediate needs of his animals, he may be obligated to share his replenishable water from its source. Like he has a stream, so it's flowing there all the time, right? That means it's replenishable. Or he has a natural well in the ground, not a man-made one. A well in the ground where if he takes water out of it, more water comes back. So he may be obligated to share his replenishable water from its source. From its source means not the water that he already collected for himself, not the water that he already put in containers and took to his cabin, for example. So he may be obligated to share his replenishable water from its source. And he gives priority to people over animals. And if his water is adjacent to, next to, public pasture, without public water, a public pasture that does not have public water, so the only water that's there is your water, it's your stream, part of your land, and your water is next to public or unowned, if you want, unowned pasture, then you would give priority to the people's animals over your own plants when the animals need that. You'll give priority to the people's animals over your own plants. So what do we say here? You have replenishable water. Any of that you already collected and took, you don't have to share that. But you might have to share your water directly from its source, its replenishable source. You're going to give priority to people over animals. And then you're going to give priority to animals over your own plants, other people's animals over your own plants. You're going to give priority to other people's animals over your own plants when they need it, even if it's not an emergency. When those animals need that, even if it's not an emergency, because the animals cannot graze without water. So preventing them from the water is like preventing them from the pasture, and preventing them from the pasture is haram. We already know that you're not allowed to stop people from unowned land, from unowned resources. That's haram. If there's a mine, you can't stop people from going in there. Or there's water or fire or like that. So you're not allowed to prevent people from the resources. So you might have to share your water and let other people's animals drink from your replenishable water source, and give priority to those other people's animals over your own plants, even if it's not an emergency, because they need that water so that they can use the pasture. Preventing them from the water is like preventing them from the pasture. If they damage one's property to drink, he can prevent them from coming, but allow the shepherd to take water.
اسمع يا إنسان تتعيش بأمان، ابتعد عن العصيان واثبت على الإيمان. اسمع يا إنسان تتعيش بأمان، ابتعد عن العصيان واثبت على الإيمان، وتعلم إنه الرحمن ما له مكان. هاي اعتقاد الفهمان، وهاي اللي بينفع أمر الإنسان يلي راح